Good evening, everyone. It is January 3rd. Happy New Year, everyone. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I guess first I had to call this meeting to order, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd like to join. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to roll call. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
O'Doherty.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Richardson. Here. Shumway.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Cumby.
Here.
Harrington.
Here.
That's 9 present and 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. We're going to move on to public comment on non-agenda items. If anybody in the room would like to speak to the council, go ahead and come forward. If you're on Zoom, just raise your hands. And City Clerk, I've not logged into the Zoom yet, so if you wouldn't mind, let me know. Anybody on Zoom? Okay. We're going to close the public comment period and go to the Vice Mayor for changes to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the following changes to the agenda be approved. To add item 9 dot capital M dot small I dot to reschedule the work session audit close to February 13 from January 9th.
Second.
Motion by Cumby, second by Shumway. All those in favor of that change, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that change has been approved. Vice Mayor?
I move that the agenda be set as changed.
Second.
Motion by Cumby, second by Newman. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Seeing none, the agenda has been set. We will move on to proclamations, public hearings, and notifications. And City Clerk, go ahead and read the public hearing. Forgive me.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the Laramie City Council will be held Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at 406 Ivinson Avenue, Council Chambers, and via Zoom meeting for the following purpose. Original ordinance number 2079, an ordinance of the City of Laramie, Albany County, Wyoming, amending Title 12 of the Laramie City Code to provide for the regulation of extraterritorial direct access to city streets. All information relative to this matter is available for review at the City of Laramie City Clerk's office at 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present or may be represented by his or her agent at the meeting.
Thank you, City Clerk. Any members of the public wish to speak to this public hearing? Go ahead and come forward in the room or raise your hand on Zoom. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close that public hearing. We don't have any announcements tonight, council members, so we'll move on to disclosures. Any disclosures, council members? Okay. Go to the Vice Mayor for approval of the consent agenda, please.
Thank you. I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. The consent agenda has been approved. We will move on to item 11. Councilor Newman, please.
I move to approve Resolution 2024-04, amending appropriations for the fiscal year 2023-2024 biannual budget of the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Newman, seconded by Pierce. Director Wade. Welcome.
Thank you. I know it's going to be a good year because I remembered to turn on the microphone, and so it's a great way to start 2024. You are being asked to consider this evening an amendment to the fiscal year 2024 budget in the amount of $2,922,187. Of this amount, you have already approved $467,314. The rest, which amounts to $2,454,873 is new appropriations for the fiscal year. Of that number, though, there is $1,443,181 in capital project support transfers that were missed during last year's budgeting process. And I want to start on those items because that item and another item in the SPT fund really do comprise the bulk of tonight's amendment. So with the ERP project, we're constructing, building, whatever, designing that project, however you talk about that, in the capital construction fund. That is a capital projects fund, and it has no funding sources of its own. And so when we budget for projects in that fund, and they're not grant funded, we have to remember to, in addition to the appropriation for the project, do a capital project support transfer. We picked up one side of that transfer with the revenue. The cash reserves were forecasted, but we did not pick up the interfund support transfers from the general fund, the water fund, the wastewater fund, and the solid waste fund to support that project. In my mind, there is no impact to this amendment because the project was appropriately budgeted for, the cash reserves were budgeted for in each fund. However, it is a budget error that we need to correct for our fiscal year 2024 financials. Moving on from there, I'm going to go over other new items with you. You will find, as I said, that most of them are small, aside from one significant item in the SPT fund that I think you will be excited about. In the general fund, staff is recommending a $15,000 increase to the engineering division to replace essential utility locator equipment that has failed. This equipment was originally scheduled for replacement in 2025. It just didn't quite make it that extra year. And in facilities management, staff is recommending a reduction of $10,392 to move appropriations for the wireless door lock upgrade project to the Recreation Center Fund. As you know, with fund accounting, it's important that we account for expenditures in the right places. We appropriated all the money for this project in the general fund, and because we need to spend from the Recreation Center Fund, we're going to reduce the general fund appropriation and increase the Rec Center appropriation, which is the next new amendment I wanted to discuss with you. So we did a 2-for-1 there. In the Parks and Rec Development Fund, we're recommending a very small adjustment, $500, to correct an error in the appropriations for the Albany County Recreation Board pass-through grant for the Laramie Soccer Club, and so we picked that up at a $500 different amount than it should have been. And in the SPT Fund, we actually have 3 items this evening. The first is a change, an increase of $22,942 for an unanticipated purchase of benches and tables for parks. Staff received a quote for sustainable parks furniture partially manufactured from recycled wind turbines. Additionally, the quote included a buy one, get one free incentive, which I think was just too good to pass up, and it was an eligible expenditure under the 2018 SPT tax. The next change in the SPT fund is a $60,250 increase for an urgent repair to the spa at the Recreation Center, which is leaking. If any of you have been to the pools lately or the sauna area, you'll notice the spa's been under construction. Staff are planning with this additional money to do a comprehensive repair, which includes retiling, fixing cracks, sealing, and the major work that needs to be done to bring the spa back into service. And the most material item of the evening is a $900,000 increase for Phase 2 of the Laramie Bike Park. The great news about this additional appropriation is that $700,000 of the increase would be funded by a Wyoming outdoor recreation grant. And we had originally appropriated this project, at least the match for it, in 2025. As you know, we don't adopt out in future years. And so in order to apply for this grant, we need to move that project forward in the schedule so we have that match and can take advantage of this really really exciting grant opportunity. And finally, in ranch operations in the water fund, the staff are recommending a $13,000 increase to replace a failing ATV that would cost over $7,000 to repair. And so at this time, replacement for $13,000 is what our fleet division would recommend. Wrapping up the presentation of tonight's amendment, I would note that more or less, most of the amendment is funded by cash reserves. That's about $1.8 million. There are SPT collections for about $400,000, $500,000 funding the amendment, as well as the $700,000 grant that I discussed in the SPT fund. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Wade. Council members, do you have any questions about these amendments to the budget? Councilor Richardson,
Thank
please.
you. I just have a quick one about the ATV. Is there any possibility of selling it for any sort of, or is it just gone and out the door?
What I typically see, even with vehicles or equipment in good repair, is that the trade-in that we would get from dealerships is very small. And so what we would typically try to do is repurpose those units to another area in the city that needed them. But in this case, with the repairs that are necessary, I doubt that they would pursue that option, council member.
Because it's so expensive. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions, Council? Okay. Thank you, Director Wade.
Yes.
We'll go to the public on this item. If there's any member of the public wishing to speak to the council, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom or come forward if you're in the room. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period back to the council for any comments before we go to the vote. Okay. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We will move on to item 12. Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 2024-05, appointing council members to the Monolith Ranch Lease Working Group, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Gabriel. Mr. Smith, welcome.
Mayor, city council members, this is pretty straightforward. Staff is recommending putting together a Monolith Ranch lease working group to look at all the aspects of the lease, economic, environmental, pretty much everything involved in that, and come up with that by the end of the first quarter. And so right now we have the city manager, the city attorney, myself, the ranch manager, one member of the RAC, and then hopefully 2 members of the city council. And we are also recommending that the council liaison be appointed. Now to stand for questions.
Sure. Council members, questions? Please. Oh, sorry, Councilor Pierce, I was just looking at you like that meant anything.
Yeah. So just so folks know, Amy Negler was the person appointed from the ranch committee to be the liaison for this. And, you know, she's got her master's in ag economics, maybe a PhD in ag economics, I don't know. So she's very good at her job.
Okay. Any other questions, council members? So we do, by way of just process, I would hope our liaison would be willing to serve. We would need to insert names into this. Is there anyone else interested, or if not, anyone objecting to having one council member serve in this position? Councilor Doherty?
I'm not clear. Do you mean the ranch advisory board liaison, or, I mean...
yeah, Councilor Pierce in this case,
Yes,
to be
okay,
like real straightforward.
that's a lot clearer, thank you.
Yeah, our liaison to the Ranch Advisory Committee. So,
Yeah, I would be more than happy to do it.
thank you.
Yeah, fully aware of what's going on, so
I sure appreciate that.
maybe not fully aware, but aware.
More aware than the rest of us. Councilor Shumway?
Just a question. I think I would be in favor of having one person, and I would be in favor of having that be Councilor Pierce, because, you know, rather than start over, I'd like to see that happen. But And unless Counselor Pierce feels like that there should be two, I'd like to see it just be one.
Counselor Richardson, and then I'm going to come to you at the end, Counselor Pierce, if you
And
have
I
anything.
guess just to follow up, what is the reasoning behind having two? I mean, is there?
It's a great question.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I think the idea was we were just looking at numbers. I don't think there was a hard fact to have to. I think it's completely up to the council's discretion.
Okay. And it does seem we have all of our sort of staff involved. Vice Mayor and then Counselor Newman. And then, did you have something, Counselor?
And I'm just offering a suggestion. I'm just wondering if we should consider our EAC liaison, since part of the topic is environmental stewardship, if that might add to the richness, but it's just a thought.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Newman?
I just have a thought of, just with one council member, there's only 8 people on the group, so if there's ties, obviously this stuff will fail, so then.
I don't believe it would be much by way of voting. It'll just be sort of, yeah,
Mr. Mayor,
please.
just real quick, I probably didn't do a good job of explaining this.
I think you did just fine. But go ahead.
This working group is to come together and look at some ideas, not particularly to vote. It's more, we're going to look at all ideas, every potential there is for leasing options, whether that's haying separate, cattle lease, like whatever that looks like. And again, it's not so much about voting, it's more just getting ideas together and then working through and getting a recommendation to the RAC.
That makes sense.
And RAC is Ranch Advisory Committee, correct? Counselor Pierce?
Yeah, and it really makes no difference to me if there's me or others. The point is, we got to get down and dirty and get this done fast. So the point is, you need to have time if you want, great, but it's like now, we got to go. And then we have to have it done, 2.5 months?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Pierce, yes, we have about 3 months, so the time that this will take is at least, at a minimum, 2 meetings a month for pretty much 3 months solid, and I would imagine every one of those meetings takes everything of 2 hours. It'll be really intensive, because we have to get it going and then get whatever we come out with advertised and have that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Doherty, please.
I'm interested because of the environment, but I also think Counselor Pierce pretty much knows what I'd be saying.
Are you talking about that toad?
Toads.
Just mention the toad a lot. That's,
So, and also I feel like planning is not my forte, so I'd be willing to do it if y'all thought to have somebody from the liaison to environmental advisory, but I feel like we're in good hands otherwise.
yeah.
I do too.
So I would be looking then for an amendment from somebody to add Counselor Pierce's name to this resolution. Whoever gets there first. Counselor Newman?
I'd like to make an amendment to approve Resolution 2024-05, appointing Councilmember Pierce to the Monolith Ranch Lease Working Group and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Newman, second by Gabriel. Council members, any discussion on the amendment itself that we haven't already had? Okay, so we're going to go to the public on the amendment. If there's any members of the public who wish to speak to this amendment, raise your hand on Zoom or come forward in the room. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Back to the council. Last chance. Thank you, Councilor Pierce. City Clerk, you can call the roll on the amendment.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That amendment has been adopted. Council members, we're back on the main motion. Will be any questions, I guess, at this point on the main motion? Councilor Doherty, please.
These are public meetings, right? So if I could attend a meeting,
Yes,
kicks and giggles, thank you.
yes, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the public on this. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this item? Same as always,
There-
raise your hand, come forward,
Mayor?
please.
The working group is not going to be an advertised meeting,
Okay,
so if you wanted to attend, you'd have to coordinate that with city
thank you.
manager.
That's- yeah, I appreciate that. I do have one maybe quick question. The lease would then come back to the council for approval at the end anyways, correct? Great. All right. We'll go, have we gone to the public on this, council? We're going to go to the public because I'm lost and I don't want to miss it. All right, any members of the public wish to speak to the main motion here, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom or come forward in the room. Seeing none, we'll close that public comment period. Back to the council before the vote. City Clerk, you can call the roll, please.
Pierce,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We'll move on to item 13. Vice Mayor Cumby.
I move to approve original ordinance number 2076, amending Title 15.08.030.E.2.c of the Laramie Municipal Code as recommended by the Planning Commission on third reading and final reading, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Cumby, second by Gabriel. Mr. Shahidi, welcome.
Honorable Mayor, Council, today I have before you the third reading of the trash ordinance that would be exempting the downtown commercial zoning district. There are some minor changes that were initiated by the city manager's office in order to improve clarity, as well as the changes that were voted on at the previous council meeting, which would omit the words "and lid" from the motion or from the text amendment. But other than that, everything remains the same. I would like to kind of bring up a few points that were brought up while I wasn't here. As discussed on October 3rd, the triggers for conformity anywhere within the city are pretty important in this case as well. If you guys remember on October 3rd, we kind of talked about this in relation to the very first trash code amendments. The first instance where a property would have to come into full conformance with code is 2 changes in use level. I'll just say within the downtown commercial zoning district, there aren't a whole lot of uses that exceed that two use level step up. And so that would be an instance where full conformity would have to come into place. Another one would be in the case where there is already a pre-existing non-conforming structure of some sort. That would be essentially, you cannot expand a non-conformity. And so if they are already non-conforming, the expansion of a non-conforming use would not be allowed, and they would have to come into conformance or stay roughly where they are. And the third would be multi-tenant complexes, which do not require actually the conformance, and that was included in the last one as well. Regardless, I have been in contact with Republic still to see if they were able to answer any of the other questions that were brought up last time. Due to the holiday season, seems like most of them are out of the office as well. And so if any other further questions want to be sent their way, we may have to wait a little bit longer on that. But we also have Fire Marshal here to answer any questions related to fire code if you all have that.
Thank you, Mr. Sheedy. Council members, do you have any questions for planning? Or also we have our fire marshal and our chief here if you have any questions about sort of flammability, and you will see one email from our fire marshal in your packet. worth referencing. So, any questions, council members? Okay. Thank you. We're going to go to the public on this item. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this item can go ahead and raise your hand or come forward in the room. And City Clerk, you can admit Brett Glass, please. And Mr. Glass, there you are. You will have 3 minutes whenever you'd like to get started.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'll be Happy New Year, and I'll try to be as brief as I can.
Sure.
The ordinance as amended is better than it was, but there is still one concern, which is that it refers to the International Fire Code and insists that there be conformance with that. The problem is that right now it doesn't seem to be possible to get even a rollaway that conforms to the International Fire Code. It might be possible in the future, but right now you can't do it. As a matter of fact, I guess somewhat concerningly, maybe a little embarrassingly, every one of the city's own dumpsters fails to conform to that fire code, as noted in the letter from the fire chief in your packet. So it might be a good idea. I'd like to call possibly for an amendment to simply remove the reference to the fire code from this ordinance before you pass it, so that we're not insisting upon something that can't be done. Hopefully it'll be able to be done in the future, and that won't be a problem. But in the meantime, let's not call it out if it's not possible to do it. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Glass, and Happy New Year to you as well. Any other members of the public wishing to speak to the council on this item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go back to the council for any comments or questions before the vote.
I would just like to hear from the fire marshal.
I was just the same thing, so.
Same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
Go ahead and come forward, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for taking the time to be here. We sure appreciate it. Welcome. Will you flip your microphone on, sir? Just push the button down there at the bottom, let it turn green, and you're on.
There we go. Honorable Mayor, council members, I'm glad to answer any questions for you. In accordance with the International Fire Code, anything that has a capacity, it regulates trash storage containers, and as they get larger in volume, it becomes more stringent, if that makes sense. Okay. The goal of the International Fire Code is to keep combustible materials away from buildings, is what it is. So the way it reads is 1 yard containers, 1.5 yard containers with plastic lids. They need to be moved greater than 5 feet away from a structure. Now, if it has a metal lid on it, the way I'm interpreting the code, it can be right up against a non-combustible wall, but it still has to maintain clearances away from exits and stuff. As Mr. Glass stated, there's a few of our containers that don't meet the criteria. However, they do because they are greater than 5 feet away from a combustible wall. So that's how it's being interpreted. So,
thank you. Councilor Rodriguez, please.
Is a brick wall a combustible wall, or it depends on?
It's non-combustible by nature, yes. So.
Okay. Councilor Richardson?
So follow up to that, so many of those brick buildings that are downtown would not need to be, the dumpster would not need to be 5 feet away from. Is that what you just said, or they do still?
So as long as it has a metal lid,
okay.
Because that's what regulates keeping the heat.
Okay, sorry, I thought you said it wasn't combustible, sorry.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Council members? My microphone was off, so sorry for everyone on Zoom. All right. Any other questions or comments, council members? Okay. City, please, Councilor.
Sorry. I would like to, Mr. Shahidi, hear from when they, sorry, you don't have to come up, but just when we hear back, because there have been questions about like, what are these, why are we charging more when they're already being charged for a lid? I would like to kind of get into that a little bit. I don't know how much we can do with them. I think that's the other issue. They are the only service in town. And so I can see the frustration with businesses who are having to deal with the continued changes with this company and the continued increases in prices and lack of service and that sort of thing. So I'd love to hear what they have to say when they do respond.
Thank you, Councilor Richardson. That's a good point. The monthly fee on top of the extra fee already incurred does seem a little interesting. So, and I think maybe a further point there, it would be interesting to see what the city, if there's a way for us to provide greater service downtown as well. Although that is likely costly, would be curious to know. Okay, any other questions, council members?
That does bring me to one more question,
Please.
sorry. One thing that I was curious about, and I don't know if there's anyone here who could, well, actually, yeah, I don't know if there's anyone here who could still help with that, but how much would a new dump truck that could service that area cost for the city? And what would that look like? I mean, it's a lot, I know, but is that something we'd want to think about?
We gave Brooks one night off.
I know, right? So anyway, that's an additional follow-up
Okay.
to be thinking about, perhaps.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. City Clerk, you can call the roll on this item.
Mayor,
Please.
just of note, the planning team did provide you an amended motion. If the council would like to make those amendments, I just wanted to point that out before we vote on the main motion.
Thank you.
And that was just change the wording from city manager's office to the city manager or the city manager's designee. And then in A, the property uses the alley for storage and pickup of receptacles instead of for trash enclosures. Those are the two recommendations they had
Okay.
for changes.
Is there a council member interested in this path? Councilor Gabriel?
But I am trying to pull it up here to get the proper language.
Anybody got it? Oh, Councilor Gabriel's got it.
Yes, I would move to approve.
Move to amend.
Yes, I would move to amend the original ordinance number 2076 as recommended by staff and outlined in the summary of original ordinance number 2076.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Gabriel, second by Vice Mayor Cumbia. And for the public, if you just click in our agenda, if you click on that first item summary document, you'll see there in red and blue down below what is included in this amendment, if approved. Council members, any questions on this amendment? Okay, we'll go to the public on this. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this amendment specifically, go ahead and raise your hand. Come forward in the room, I should invite as well. Okay, we'll close the public comment period on the amendment. Council members, anything before the vote? Okay. Seeing none, City Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. The amendment has been approved. We're back to the main motion. Council members, any other discussion before we go to the vote on the main motion? All right, City Clerk, I'll have you call the roll on the main motion as amended.
Pierce.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We'll move on to item 14, Councilor Richardson.
I move to approve on second reading original ordinance number 2079, adding chapter 12.37 to the municipal code, providing for regulation of extraterritorial access to city streets.
Second.
Motion by Richardson, second by Pierce. City Attorney? Welcome.
Mayor, Council, nothing has changed since first reading. This ordinance is Now I'm all thrown off. Councilor Gabriel.
Tighten it up, council.
This started as a policy of the city. That policy was adopted by this council and confirmed by resolution, and now it is being embodied in an ordinance. And it requires people who are outside of the city, whose property abuts the city, and want to connect that property to the city streets to have an access agreement before they make that connection.
Thank you, City Attorney. Council members, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to the public on this item. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this ordinance on second reading, please go ahead and raise your hand or come forward in the room. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Back to the council. Any comments? Okay. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved on second reading. Move on to item 15, public comments. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any item, go ahead and come forward in the room. Raise your hand if you are on Zoom. Okay, seeing none, I will close public comments. Council members, any future work session topics you all would like to discuss? Councilor Newman, please.
Councilor Richardson brought up a good point. Could we maybe consider talking about some sort of new truck to do the trash for downtown? And could like have a discussion about it?
Anyone else interested in that? I don't know if there's another way that typically would come forward, so if that's could sure discuss it.
Yeah, I didn't
Sure.
know if it was.
Yeah.
I'll go along with that.
Okay. Councilor O'Doherty?
Yeah, I'm interested in that too, especially if it could be something that would carry cardboard on different runs, so that,
Okay.
or
Okay.
recyclables.
Thank you, councilors. All right, any others? Okay. Councilor Pierce?
Really?
We're there.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Council members, we are adjourned.
Under an hour.